Team standing one goal here tonight at PNC Stadium. The Houston Dynamo get a 1-0 victory over San Antonio FC. Welcome to Striker Texas post-game coverage of this U.S. Open Cup round of 32 match. Victor Ariza covering Houston Dynamo for the StrikerTexas.com, and I'm joined by Jonathan Check, who covers San Antonio. Jonathan, your opening thoughts about this game, how you saw it, and what are some of the takeaways you get from it?
Yeah, so I said before the match, at the very least, I always just ask for an exciting 90 minutes or potentially in the cup a little more of soccer. And I think we got that here tonight, even if the goals weren't exactly going in. SAFC and Houston missing a number of chances tonight. And so it really just became a question of who was finally going to have that moment of clinicality, who was finally going to get that goal. And I think based on the passage of play tonight, it was more in Houston's favor. They were more likely to get that chance, even though I think early on SAFC probably had the more dangerous chances. Couldn't finish them, but I'm not going to punish them as much tonight. And SAFC was able to hold Houston at bay and stay in the match for 80 minutes.
Yeah, Sebastian Ferreira being the difference here, the clinical man in front of goal. Actually, right behind us over there. Some of the stuff already taken apart, but obviously, ultimately, I think when it was going to come down to dying minutes and tired legs, I did think quality was going to prevail, and that's what you. I mean, when you have a guy that's worth multi millions of dollars, right? Anywhere between four to six and a half, reportedly out there. I mean, these are the kind of guys that were going to be the difference. And this is where, in these stages of the Open Cup, it starts to be a bit of a gap, maybe. Um, in that sense, do you feel there's a sour taste in the mouth of San Antonio for not walking away with at least a goal, with at least, I don't want to say more of a fight because obviously they stayed in it, but what can San Antonio take from this? And do you think there is a lot of disappointment based on the result?
First of all, I think with hearing what Alan Marcinez said after the match, he was lamenting those missed opportunities, which I've talked about it on a number of occasions. But despite that, it will maybe leave SAFC obviously with a bit of a sour taste because if one or two of those chances go in, if they're able to defend that one or potentially two goal lead,
Yeah, some
they
of the
could
chances in the first half and early in the
exactly.
second
They
half.
could be advancing into the round of 16, could be that last remaining Texas team. But at the same time, it wasn't a bad performance. Something I said at the live blog at the end was SAFC didn't go out with a bang or a whimper, just kind of a shrug. It was an okay performance. Could have been better, could have been a lot worse. We've referenced it in passing once or twice. 6 years ago, same match here, San Antonio FC in Houston. It ended 4-0.
Right,
It was not nearly
right.
that bad this time. So I think from the performance perspective, it's something for SAFC to take heart from. And, it wasn't nearly as lopsided as Saturday's 3-0 loss against Phoenix.
Yeah, and you mentioned that I think San Antonio gave it a good run there. They were compact. They tried to stay strong against Houston. A lot of it was mind games, which I think made the game a little bit more interesting. There was heckling from fans on the field. It was heated as well, right? We saw some moments there in the match. But ultimately, I think that's at least for Houston, uh, to not give in to some of those self doubts, to be able to pull out of this one, especially in a rough 3 game stretch. It may be a short sample size, but it's a rough stretch where they've been so compact. They've allowed other teams to get back into games. I think this would have been a brutal loss if they had lost to a USL Championship side like San Antonio, albeit that they're a very good USL Championship side. But for Houston, it would have been a tough blow. They get to advance, they get to go through. And for San Antonio, what are some of the positives they can take from this run back to their USL Championship fight? And obviously trying to finish it this year, and ultimately ending up with the championship.
Yeah, like I said in my recap, which should be up on the Striker Texas if you want to try and multitask watching us and reading that right now. But SFC, I think, can take heart from this entire Open Cup run. A little over a month ago, the first match against Defeaters Kicks, you had five teenagers in the lineup, five academy products. That's obviously always a good thing. And then as the matches were on against Austin, then obviously Houston, good performances, good defensive displays, even though SAFC couldn't get what they needed tonight. Um, And just overall going toe to toe with those two teams, two strong lineups. I said it before the match. Austin obviously had a good lineup, and you were saying Houston had a very good one tonight, even if it wasn't necessarily showing for the first portion of the
Right.
match. Um, Despite that
But
gulf in the
ultimately,
two
that was the
divisions,
difference. The starters, yeah.
it was, yeah. And I'm actually kind of curious from the Houston perspective. I know I think it was the 55th minute, you said this cup set might actually be on the cards because Houston wasn't necessarily playing any differently.
Yeah,
What
you
do you
saw
think
you
caused that
saw
change?
you saw a missed chance from Memo Rodriguez. Yeah, you saw some opportunities kind of going away from Houston. Again, allowing maybe San Antonio a little bit too much in the game, like they did in the other two matches against their Texas rivals with Austin and Dallas, and obviously this last weekend against DC. I think in the end it was a numbers game, right? Tired legs for San Antonio. Houston kept knocking on the door, kept trying to get in. In the end, it comes off a set piece. Sam Junka, just puts it up in the air. Ferreira finds separation, just like he did for one of his very first goals here in Houston, and just puts it in the back of the net. And it's that simple. And then after that, it's easier to defend for Houston, especially with at that point it was a 8 minutes until the end of the game. Just kind of keep the clean sheet, get the result, and then move on to the next round. But again, we were 8 minutes away from maybe going extra time, and then after that, if it kept going the way it was, it could have even gone to penalty kicks. I mean, it was that close. I think Houston obviously was trying to mix MLS and Open Cup, right? They didn't go with the strongest lineup here tonight, but they went with a strong enough lineup to get the job done, and ultimately they get that result. Um, it is a positive result for them because it breaks that stretch. Now they got a match against Nashville coming up this weekend. They'll have the Seattle Sounders here next week. Two important games at home, 2 points that they need to keep because they've been giving up points here at PNC Stadium, and then from there, trying to rectify themselves a little bit in the MLS season. So I think it does of the Texas teams. Obviously, these two are aside alongside Dallas. San Antonio got that far. I think for them, um, who knows where their MLS aspirations are going to be, right? Or where they're going to end up, what the future holds. But they've shown they have quality, right, to compete. And um, again, I'll just leave you with that. That's one thing they can take away. They were obviously got to the final last year and didn't get the job done. Is there a sense that this San Antonio team this year can get it done, can win the championship in the USL?
It's weird because I don't know if, especially given SAFC's history, you would ever say, "Oh yeah, they." Maybe in the first few years, you say, "Okay, this is a talented squad; it can go all the way." But then
Oh,
they
but
weren't
but they've had enough
necessarily.
years in the league now. I mean,
Yeah,
they should be
now
categorized as contenders.
now that they had that run last year, they've proven Alan Marcina and the entire club have proven they can put the pieces together at the right time. And we saw it in these last few Open Cup matches where SAFC has the quality to be, again, go to toe with MLS and just be one of the best teams in the USL Championship. I think it might just be a question toward the end of the season of depth of who's injured, because Houston obviously has a lot of players that they can mix and match with the MLS Next Pro side and everything. SAFC, it's going to be mostly the same guys for Saturday's match away to Phoenix, tonight's match, and Saturday's match away to Miami. So obviously, it's going to be a brutal week. I don't envy SAFC by the end of this, but later on in the season, if they can make additions in the right places and they've got a deep enough squad and they stay healthy, who knows where they could go? They've got the quality there.
San Antonio returns to the USL Championship. Houston returns to MLS this weekend. We'll have coverage of these games and obviously the rest of the seasons for both teams and all of across Texas, MLS, USL Championship, on and on we go at thestrikertexas.com. If you're watching us on the Striker Texas on Twitter, you haven't followed us, give it a follow there. You can turn on alerts to get some of your articles on the spot, some breaking news. Also, YouTube as well. You can subscribe there to get the couple of our podcasts. Again, get the alert, hear them on immediately when they go up. You guys have the USL show, the Striker
Striker
Texas.
Tejas, yeah.
We have the Striker MLS podcast. So if you like Texas soccer, there's plenty of coverage to go around. And then obviously Sebastian Ferreira today scoring in another game against a Texas foe. We'll leave you with this. After in press conference, he did say, "I wish all teams would move to Texas now so I can score against them every week." More post game quotes, more post game coverage, and then as we mentioned, going back to league play on the StrikerTexas.com. For Victor Isa, Jonathan Check, we thank you for joining us here tonight on the Striker Texas and the StrikerTexas.com.